we've got deposits on agreement at West Hills at $20,000. That number is again a plug number based on as we have when we set up recapture ordinances. That's where those revenues from those recaptures will show up in there as a revenue source, and that's basically a plug number. So that's based on development activity. The $93,000 for the meters sold, that's for, again, revenue we get back to offset the expense on the meters, as well as our meter maintenance fees that we charge on an annual basis. Also, that's where that revenue shows. So anyway, the total water revenues is $2,077,453 proposed, which is a 1.84% reduction from last year. And our total water O&M expenses that we'll go through in more detail, they come up with $2,076,340 for a cash flow in the positive of $1,113. And so it's razor thin, but our mandate for our residents and our users of our system is we're supposed to charge what it costs for us to maintain the system and rebuild the system and through depreciation and so forth, and basically do nothing more. So that's basically what we adhere to. And I know in the past, leading up to our budget discussions, I've indicated that a rate increase would probably be needed at this point in time, but we have some alternate solutions for your consideration that may alleviate the cost for a rate increase that we'll talk about in a minute or two. So if there's no questions on the revenue side, we'll go to the expense side of the equation. Yep, line by line. All right, so sheet 2 of 30, salaries. You'll see the salary is reduced this year, and that's basically because of through retirements and having new employees replacing the older employers, you see a revenue savings. So that's what that represents.
Water. Yeah.
Yeah, so I did.
A little further back in that section, you'll see the expense part of it.
So So we're done with revenues, now we're going to expenses, now we're going to page 2 of the. Okay, all right. I apologize, mine are tabs, so. All right, so salary is a little bit less than previous. Overtime has stayed the same. Again, overtime, it's basically weather-related as far as main breaks, what we experience, what we don't experience. Everybody in the Public Works Department all participates in snow removals. So, again, those are all things that cause us to incur overtime. FICA is reduced.
Hey, Brent, excuse me just a minute. So I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page here. So we had, after 8 of 8 in water, then we turn to the expense side, 1 of 30, 2 of 30, okay?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So the FICA is a little bit reduced just because our salary has been reduced. That's a percentage. Same with IMRF. So again, those are all good news that helped us with our budgetary allotments. Health insurance is reduced as well. Slight increase on the uniform, again, for the new employee being contemplated, that is cost is split between the 3 departments. Repairs, maintenance, infrastructure, page 8 of 30 remains the same.
Go ahead, Alderman Snow.
So with the FICA and a couple of these other things going down, but you're actually looking to add somebody, and then you got the uniform to add somebody, I'm a little curious as to how that occurs.
Well, because the decrease, again, the salary line item includes the portions of the new employee assigned to that department. So it's been a while since I looked. I think it's 60, is it 40, 30? I forget what the split is for the administration. Right. So the fact that his salary is included in there, but we had retirements, so we went from this salary A to a lower salary B. when you add it all up for that department, it's a lower overall salary than the previous year. And there's percentages, those FICA and IMRF is a straight percentage of what you're spending on salary, hence the reduction. So they kind of go hand in hand. All right, so 8 of 30 stays the same at 74,000. Repairs, maintenance, buildings and grounds, 16,000. Same as last year. Maintenance equipment on the wells, 33,000, same as last year. Yes, because those other two have already been off for a period of time, so you're seeing that. You're seeing that specifically on this one. Yes, it helps, it forgoes an increase because you're taking two old ones off, replacing it with one new one. Repairs, maintenance of vehicles, 20,000, the same as previous. Repairs, maintenance contractual, page 12 of 30, same as last year. Other professional services, $15,000, again, same as last year. Yes, sir.
Question on that one. The actual in '21 was 51,000. Why such a reduction?
If you see on the breakdown, the emergency response plan was a one-time mandated plan through EPA, and that was that expense that showed up in that calendar year, fiscal year. Telephone, $10,000, same as last year. Postage, 18,000, same as last year.
Curiosity, and I pay my bill the old-fashioned way with a check, but are we changing the ability to pay different ways online and all that good stuff for water and sewer?
We are currently researching that, so we'll have more information forthcoming on what our options are, what that means, what those possibilities could be. That's probably going to be a month or two away, depending on how all this other stuff plays out. But yes, we are currently gathering information for council's consideration. Utilities, $250,000, staying the same. Office equipment, rental, and maintenance, we bumped that up. No, actually, yes, we've bumped that up again for, the internet would be the main issue on that one. Liability insurance, is increased, and again, we have no control over that. That's what rates that we get. That's our share of the costs that are quoted to us. Lab expense and training, is 36,000, same as last year. Office supplies, 10,000, same as last year. Gas and oil, 20,000, same as last year. Operating supplies, as far as on the distribution side, 67,000, same as last year. Chemicals, 90,000, same as last year. Meters, 20,000. Again, that's basically a plug number of what we use. And you can see what our expenses have been in the past versus what they have been lately. And again, there's revenue. Just remember, there's always revenue to offset that meter expense. Bad debt expense, $2,000, same as last year.
Brent, what does that actually do, or what occurs in that hole?
I'll put Shannon on the spot. That's the stuff of when we have to write off if there's finals or if there's bankruptcies declared, that kind of stuff that we lose out on. That's the budget that we account for that. Miscellaneous expense at 5,000, same as last year. And equipment, that's in capital now. We don't use that one. Transfer out is zero, and depreciation set aside. So, the reason why we have a positive cash flow both last year and this year in the water department is due to our reduction in the depreciation set aside. So think of this O&M that we just went through, expense side, as your checkbook, where you're writing your checks, you're paying for all your day-to-day activities to operate. And then we make a contribution on a monthly basis to depreciation, which I'll refer to as a savings account. That's where we save up for our rainy day projects, and that's what we'll go through with our capitals. So we have enough, there's a roughly about $800,000 balance in our water depreciation account right now, our savings account. And so we really need to, and that's what that's what I explained in the memo, was that we really need to get that funding level back up where it was. Actual for FY21 was $344,000. So we're almost $30,000 less on an annual basis on our contribution. We really need to get that number back up to that 344. That represents, that $30,000 would represent a 3-cent increase basically to generate that additional income. However, the city has received ARPA funds, COVID relief money, in the amount of $3.4 million. We've received a half of it now. We expect to receive the other half later this summer. The water and sewer, street department, our infrastructure projects basically all qualify for using ARPA money. So we have right now, we have a contract with our painting contractor for the Southwest Tower. And in the amount of, round numbers, it's $600,000, which would be theoretically paid for out of that depreciation account that we have an $800,000 balance. So if we could apply ARPA funds to that project to pay that $600,000, that basically takes care of the shortages that we're now seeing in that contribution that on a monthly basis. Therefore, our rate increase would not be needed to make up that difference. We could make it up for now with the ARPA money. Going forward, through the process of the EPA loan, we have to do a rate increase regardless to cover that parameter for the new well. So if we use the ARPA money for the tower, we can forego the rate increase at this time, and then we can look at not only what the rate increase will be required for the new well, but if there's any additional increase that we need for O&M, and then which would be a year from now, a year and a half from now, we can do it at that time and basically do one increase at then for the water department. So that's what we're looking at. Any questions on 29 of 30? Okay, and the bond payment set aside, for right now, that is zero. However, when we get done with our well project, then you'll see a number in there for 20 years running. Which brings us to the capital. So for 2023, we have plugged in a mini excavator with a trailer. That would be a new purchase. We have a backhoe right now that we use primarily. We also have the ability to borrow the street department's mini excavator when it's available for use at the water department. However, our employees would probably utilize a mini excavator all the time and have the backhoe only when the certain situations dictate. One of the big benefits of the mini backhoe is its size, its maneuverability. With a tractor backhoe, we can only turn less than 180 degrees side to side, whereas with the mini excavator you can do 360 degrees. So it's much more efficient, much more effective. The problem with using the street departments as we have been, then the street department, it's not available for them to use. So then we get into a contest between the two departments on who gets what. So that's what we're proposing to do, a mini excavator with a trailer, a dedicated trailer to move it around town. That's $120,000. And our sewer service inspection camera at $17,000. Our current camera that we use, it's basically a rope camera that we use. We purchased that new in 2006. So it's getting to the end of its life. And as you know, we are now responsible for the sanitary sewer services from the property line out to the main. So we do need to have a camera capable of doing those inspections. And our mainline camera, we can turn and look up, but we can't go up the services. So that's the requirement for that. So those are the two items that we are looking for as far as equipment goes out of the budget this year. And then infrastructure needs, we've got the water tower, which is on the, not on this sheet, but it's shown on your overall sheet that you got from Shannon. But again, that's gonna be paid for out of the loan proceeds. And then also the southwest tower expense of, and on Shannon's recap, it's specific, round numbers, it's 600,000. It's 598,000 some odd dollars is what the approved contract is for that. And again, that is an ARPA qualified expense. Any questions on water expenses? All right, which moves us to connection fees, which is page 1 of 12. And that should be just keeping in line with in your water side of the water books, I believe. So the connection fees, and this is combined between water and sewer, and this is where, when we set up recapture amounts for ordinances and things, we have connection fees established for any new connection to the city's system to replace lost capacity. That's where the revenues come in. So again, as new development takes place, new users are connected to the system, they pay us a one-time fee to help offset the capacity that they're gonna utilize, and that's what we use to fund this account. And you can see what our current balance is and where we're at, and probably going forward, this money be used in some way, shape, or form if and when we do our sanitary sewer extension to Irene Road, ultimately to the Four Rivers Sanitary District in Rockford. That's pretty much where this is going to be earmarked for.
So Brent, the 50,000 that's budgeted, that takes into account water and sewer connection?
Yes, this is combined, it's combined for both systems. Theoretically, per EPA's guidelines, we are a combined system.
So
Even
when-
though we keep account separate for water and sewer, we are a combined system.
So in theory, if you had really good use of it or everything worked out, you'd be able to pay for all the upgrades at the sewer plant, upgrades to needing new wells or whatever might
We were
occur. But
fortunate enough when we did, for example, when we did new well number 10, we paid for that out of this fund, cash deal. We didn't borrow anything, we didn't have it, we had it. Because of where we're at now, and it's a $5 million price tag, obviously we don't have enough just to do that this time around. We have some other future endeavors that are going to be out there that we need to fund also. So it was felt it was more prudent for us to borrow that money, especially based on what the terms were and what the conditions are and principal forgiveness and everything that goes along with that program, as opposed to paying cash this time around. Next up then is the depreciation funding. And again, this is for both water and sewer. And you can see, well, let's see, I'll tell you. If you want a breakdown, we have
what
about-
page are we on and have a look at?
We are we are page 1 of 11. Should be the next one in your order, I'm guessing. Underwater. 1 of 11. So the breakdown right now, existing, like I said earlier, it's about $800,000 in the water depreciation and about $800,000 in the sewer depreciation. So anything that comes out of capital ideally gets paid for out of this money, and this is where our monthly contribution out of checking, out of O&M budget to the depreciation budget takes place. So if there's any questions, we can look at the individual breakdowns, but otherwise, we will go to the next section, page 1 of 6, and that's the water and sewer fund, again, for the bond payment accounting. So again, there's, and we'll see it on the sewer, going forward, it's a little bit, it's 120, and that's our current, we have a current loan with IEPA on the sanitary sewer side when we did the filtration project, and we'll have the new loan, so we'll have a second payment to do for sewer, once they get done with the digester project. Which, if there's no questions, brings us to the sewer side of the equation. So again, on the revenue side, which is page 1 of 7, in the sewer portion, you can see there that, again, a reduction on the sewer side as well, for revenue for consumption. Total revenues of $2,967,711. That's a 3.84% decrease. And our total sewer O&M expenses are pegged at $2,937,239. Again, with a $30,472 positive cash flow. And as we get into the expense line items, you'll see that the reason for the cash flows, again, is a reduced payment to sewer depreciation, but we'll talk about that when we get there. And again, the $93,000 on the meters sold, that's the meter maintenance fees, that's split between water and sewer, so everybody gets those. And then other services, and if you want to look at the other services breakdown, that would be sheet 5 of 7. And the majority of that cost revenue is for septic dumps. And the balance is for turn-on fees, NSF checks, and so on. But the majority of that additional revenue is through the septic dumps. And that, as you can see, from 18 till now continues to increase.
And Brent, so that septic dump is a service to outside contractors to
Correct.
treat their sewage. And again, we're not allowed to use it as a cash cow in that regards as far as
Well,
increasing the general fund in general.
you can't use general fund with water and sewer. They don't mix.
Okay,
It's water and sewer funds or water and sewer funds.
okay.
Yes.
But you could, in theory, you could up those charges for those people in order to help pay for additional upgrades, charges, and fixes at the sewer plant.
We are currently looking at some of our fee structure for pretreatment testing and so forth. So the septic dumps would be one of those items that we could look at to see if there's any adjustments needed. Those fees have been in place for quite a while now and probably could be up for review and adjustment. But there's none of that being proposed under this current budget.
And generically speaking, are we considered competitive or whatever? Or is everybody kind of pretty much in the same boat? It's just about whether they want to drive to Rockford or wherever.
Yeah, it's mostly local contractors that serve Boone County. It's basically, they tend to want to go, the dump fee is probably not the biggest single expense. It's more wear and tear on your equipment, gasoline and so forth, and hours, labor costs. So we tend to see mostly Boone County service. On the revenue side, if there's no, or on the expense side, then if there's no questions on revenue. 1 of 44. We'll start with page 2 of 44, salaries. Again, there's a reduction in costs on the salaries through retirements. Overtime has remained the same at $55,000, and again, that's basically predicated on weather. As you know, the majority of our sludge disposal is done through land application. There's only certain windows, times of the year, we have to go when the farmers are ready for us. So when the sun's out and it's dry, we go, and the fields are available, we go. So our overtime activity reflects those conditions. And by the way, Input costs for fertilizer for farmers this year is predicted to double what they were paying last year. Our nitrogen benefits for our sludge is tremendous, and I'm foreseeing, expecting a lot more farm fields to be available to us this year going forward, as long as those pricing on traditional fertilizers remains high. So FICA, page 4 of 44, is a reduction, again, as a reflection of the reduction in the salaries. Same for IMRF. And same for group health insurance, page 6 of 44. Uniform allowance is a slight increase. Repair and maintenance of lift stations stays the same at $25,000. Maintenance of buildings, $95,000. That's a $5,000 reduction from the year previous. Repair and maintenance of equipment, that's moved all to the, in the note there, to the collection system side of things. Repair and maintenance of vehicles, $28,000. And again, this is for the wastewater treatment plant portion of the sewer side of the budget. That's the 820 numbers. Contractual, $50,000, same as last year. Other professional services, $73,500, same as last year. The NARP watershed, that was a new line item beginning last year. That's a requirement through EPA that we belong to a watershed or have to do our own watershed study. So it was in the best interest of the city to participate with the Rock River, as a part of the Rock River watershed, which includes the Kishwaukee. We're as a direct tributary to that. Our first year dues was set at the $30,000. We just had our annual meeting a week ago, and the dues was set, and our cost this year will be $34,700 and some. So hence the budget number of $35,000 for this year. That dues structure is established annually. We are, the biggest portion of work will be performed in this upcoming fiscal year in that NARP study. So I would expect going forward that our contribution to the NARP will probably be reduced again. But the $35,000 is what's needed to fund this year's component. Telephone, it's increased again. That's where our cable or our Comcast service is included. Postage stays the same. Page 17 of 44, utilities, stays the same, $200,000. And again, we hope to continue to be able to reduce that. We're again participating in the SEMS program through Commonwealth Edison, so hopefully we'll find even more improvements or things that we can do to reduce our utility costs. Office equipment, page 18 of 44, stays the same. Liability insurance, this one is a slight increase. Lab expense has gone up to $35,000. It seems like there's more and more things to test for. And so that cost increase represents those additional testing items that we're doing on a regular basis.
Brent, when do we go to Rockford for the testing? Sometimes we approve testing to go to Rockford.
Go to Rockford. When you're probably thinking of water samples, we use the city of Rockford's lab to do that. That's on the water side as opposed to the sanitary sewer side. No, that's on for water testing. Water lab is where you would see that. Sludge disposal, $15,000. That's the stuff that we take off the grates when it's the incoming first comes into the plant, and that's the stuff that we cannot treat that we do have to landfill. So that's what that cost represents, and you'll see that's a slight increase over previous, and that's just a reflection of what the expenses are currently. Office supplies, page 22 of 44, stays the same at $12,000. Gas and oil proposed to stay the same at 25,000. Operating supplies, page 24, 44, the same at 15. No, I'm sorry, it's a reduction of $5,000 over last year. Chemicals, 50,000, that's a $5,000 increase over last year. But you can see overall history, if you go back to look at where we were back in '08, '09, '10, compared to where we're at now, we're doing a lot better on our, again, our efficiencies and things that we're seeing at the plant has allowed us to reduce those costs over time. Meters, $20,000. Again, there's revenue to offset that expense. The bad debt expense, as we talked on the water side, is $2,000. That stays the same. Page 28 of 44, miscellaneous expense stays the same at $2,000. Transfer out, there's no transfer out. So let's talk about transfer out just for a second here. Did I bring that with me? I probably didn't bring that with me. So when we get our monthly statements, when the council receives their monthly statements on water and sewer activities on the reports, when we do through bills payable, you'll get that statement. And it'll show you where we're at currently on a month-to-month basis in relating to the budget. And you'll see a balance in our O&M account at the unexpended balance. Traditionally, what we use as a benchmark for both water and sewer is when those get above a certain number. In the sewer side, it's 500,000, and I think our current budget or our current number right now is like 537 or something. When we get to the end of the budget year, typically do once a year, we'll look at that number, and if it's high enough that what warrants a transfer, we'll transfer that to the depreciation account. Think of it as an extra payment into your savings account. So that's kind of where these transfer outs, those big numbers that you see in there were specifically for projects we had to repay. We borrowed money from an account to pay for a project, we had to pay it back. That's what that represents. But just going forward, when we get that balance in O&M, if it gets to be big enough, we will transfer some of that out and put it into depreciation.
And who determines that amount, or is it a percentage, or just a
Well,
wild
like I
eyes
said,
looking at it?
It's through the auditors, through the years, the benchmark on the sewer side of thing has been 500,000. I believe on the water side it's like 300,000. So when we get to that point, then we can zero back to that. And then keep it at that level. Now, on the moving forward then, on the collection side of the sewer. So we just did the treatment side, now we're doing the collection side, which is part of the Water Sewer Department 210 Whitney, and the treatment side, of course, is the Newburgh Road activities. So again, salaries on the collection side, again, a reduction over previous based on retirements and those change-outs. Overtime is staying the same. Reduction in the FICA. Reduction in the IMRF, as well as the group health insurance. Yes, sir.
As far as retirements, are you planning on replacing those people that are retiring, or no?
They are being replaced, and they're being replaced at the starting level of salary, so that's what you're seeing, the benefits. That's the benefit right now, is you got rid of a higher salary, you're replacing it with a lower salary. But through our matrix, through our existing contract, it's a 5-year period to go from your starting salary to your maximum salary, unless you are moved up to a foreman or specialist position. So you've got a 5-year window where you'll be caught back up to where it was before. Again, group health insurance is a reduction. Uniform allowance has stayed the same. The additional cost for the additional employee was paid out of the treatment plant side of the sewer. Repair and maintenance, $35,000, stays the same. Repair and maintenance of the equipment is $14,000, stays the same. Repair and maintenance of the vehicles stays the same. Office equipment stays the same. Gas and oil stays the same. Operating supplies remains the same. Miscellaneous expense stays the same. And then depreciation set aside. And again, this is the big one in the room, where again, we, in order to get our balanced budget for this year, it's a reduction. We're keeping it the same as, proposing to keep it the same as we did last year. At $255,000, you can see we were up to $500,000 in actual in 20. We would like to get back to that point. We need to get back to that point. But again, if you look, I'll explain a little bit more on that when we get to the depreciation expenses, capital expenses. Page 44 of 44, the bond payment set aside. That's where that $123,000, that's for our current EPA loan. That's our annual expense for doing that on that project. Which brings us to the capital expenses. So for this year, we have a four-wheel drive pickup truck to replace our 2000 GMC. That was what was in our current budget, and we agreed to put that off until next fiscal year, so that's why that's there. And then, if you go down to the infrastructure needs, the primary clarifier repair, and that's update that number, it's $1.4 million. That's the latest estimate. That is our single biggest need right now as we speak in the Public Works Department. It has gone downhill greatly in the last year and a half. Work really needs to get done. Again, that is an ARPA qualified project, and by using ARPA funds for that project will alleviate some of the pressure that we're seeing on the depreciation account. And there again, same as on the water side, be able to forego a rate increase at this point in time because that cost will not be covered by that ARPA grant. So if council agrees, is in agreement with that, and be able to utilize that money for that, then we can forego the rate increase until such time as when our current digester project gets done. At that point, we will need to do a rate increase to cover that loan payment, second loan payment for the sanitary sewer system. And that was estimated in the beginning to be 17 to 24 cents. We'll see how that is yet to play out once that construction ends, is finished up, see how much forgiveness we're going to get on that project, principal forgiveness, see what our final total is. And again, that's going to happen, right now it's projected to be done by this winter, late this season, so I would expect a rate increase to have to take effect next January, February, probably timeframe, the way it looks right now, and we'll have a better handle then as to not only what our actual cost is for the loan project, but then what we may need to do as a rate increase to help offset what we're seeing in the depreciation account set aside. So that would be my recommendation to council to help alleviate the need for a rate increase at this time on the sewer side as well. Any questions on capital? And with that, I'm done. That was pretty quick, folks.
Okay. Any questions for Brent at all? I think probably the elephant in the room is what are we going to do with the funds that have been made available to us and regarding ARPA? And in this case, I think we're looking at, I know I'm looking at ways to stave off any sort of a rate increase, and I can't think of a better way to use those funds than that. So certainly it's the council's call, but we'll be making that decision going forward. So.
And ARPA is 3.4 million. Those two projects, it represents 2 million. That's still 1.4 million out there, and I have lots of uses for that 1.4 million. So
I'm sure you do, Brent.
So
Thank
I will
you.
be lobbying for additional funds as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's see. We have item C. We do not have an executive session, so that is not, we don't have that on the agenda. So hearing we have no other, seeing we have no other business, can I get a motion to adjourn, please? Motion by Alderwoman Prather, second by Alderman Stevens. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. For the record, we adjourned at 8:36 PM. Thank you, everybody.